We have water in the Everglades. We have a precious resource. Let's protect it. Let's watch out for the seawater rise, and let's do everything we can. Let's bring in the technology. Let's bring in everybody that we can, but let's also fight for the federal funding necessary to do that.
That's me, right? County commissioners, including Katie, appointed me to the Climate Change Task Force, which is a very interesting board. A lot of great work being done. I have a general objection to the board in that most of what we're doing is based upon fear of catastrophes. And yes, you do have to respond when there's a catastrophe. But when it's a slow motion catastrophe, like this one may be, we need to lead by being positive. You can only truly be as bold as we need to be now if we're trying to do something good rather than avoid something bad. And I want to give you an example of the kind of stuff that I think we should be doing here in the county. It's something that we're already doing at our house. By the way, you're invited to come to our house. We have monthly tours. I keep talking about it. So the issue is carbon. We're releasing too much carbon into the atmosphere.
Does this relate to sea level?
Yes. That's why sea level rise is happening. Global warming is resulting from carbon in the atmosphere. So we're looking for a way to take that carbon and get it out of the atmosphere back into the ground. Well, in Miami-Dade County, we have a lot of trees doing that every day, turning it into woody waste. So what we do is we create charcoal on our site. We have bonfires, right? You burn it down to the point where you're down to coals, you now have charcoal. You can take that, grind it up, and put it into your soil as a soil amendment. And if we do it on the scale of a county, you can sell those credits into the international carbon market, which means our waste problem in terms of woody waste becomes a potential source of income. That's the kind of stuff we need to be talking about.
All right. So you're aware, by the way, why we're trying to jump around a little bit is we got a note saying it was unfair to constantly go back and forth and have some folks in the middle not take first crack. So that's why we're doing it. Now, a question from Edward Escobar. A number of you mentioned not mandating picking a winner. Would you be in favor of mandating a percentage of energy be produced by alternative sources so innovation can flourish and the best tech will come out on top? Sure. And Edward, if I'm butchering your question, then please feel free to help me with it. A number of you mentioned not mandating picking a winner. Would you be in favor of mandating a percentage of energy be produced by alternative sources so innovation can flourish? We started with you last time, right, Mr. Dale?
Well, I wasn't one of the ones that talked about mandating, I think that we need to invest in renewable energy, and I think that all kinds of different sources need to be invested in. I certainly am favorable towards certain ones, but I don't think that I would necessarily pick one over another one or a winner. I don't know how I necessarily feel about picking a winner or mandating things. I think that that's a little strong. I think we need to try different things. This is new technology. We need to try new technologies. We need to invest in them. We need to get funding from the federal government, from the state government. We need to do tax incentives as well so that we can definitely help our homeowners. Like I said, I talked about retrofitting their homes.
Why don't we just go that way and then...
Well, you know, sometimes folks say, well, it's bad to mandate, but let's talk about a mandate. South Florida Building Code. Is it good?
Yeah?
Yeah, it's good. That's a mandate. So mandate sometimes is not necessarily evil, okay? So we have to understand what we're doing here. If we say, okay, let's put solar power, which is nothing new, it's also something old, okay? Okay, let's use solar power as the mandate because we will get a lot of energy sources out of it, okay? That's a good mandate. That's something that would work. Now, what can we do? Okay, the South Florida Building Code, by the way, is being attacked, and we need to defend, make sure that we keep it. Because we have all lived the experience of Andrew, and we don't want that to happen again. So, in terms of this mandate, we have to understand exactly what's good and what's bad, because not necessarily all mandates are evil.
Just go ahead.
I think we do that in many places already, and we kind of self-mandate. Like I take a look at our municipality, and we do self-mandate. When we have developers that come in, we want to provide incentives so that they can have a greener building. When they come in and they build, we want them to put the power lines underground. There's certain things that we want to do to make it more advantageous. So we kind of do that now already. So would I be in favor of mandating a certain percentage of some type of green renewable energy? I think I would be okay with that, but I think that we would have to take a look and make sure, because remember, anytime you're building, whether you're building a house, no matter what, if there is a great increase in cost, that's going to be passed on to the consumer, and the consumer is the home buyer. People are having a very tough time right now. So I think while I might be in favor of a mandate, I'd have to analyze the mandate, what percentage of the total development would have to be green, what type of renewable energy of their source. And so I think that we'd have to take a look at it and analyze it. I wouldn't be opposed to it, but just to provide a blanket absolutely yes or absolutely no, you have to take a look at what is the percentage, what is the preference to renewable energy, what type of renewable energy, and what would be the focus on residential, on commercial, and I think it would work very well. I think commercial is a good place to start, kind of like we did in Homestead. You start with the commercial, you set the example, and then you pass it on. I mean, we have a mandate right now, a percentage of everybody's fuel that they put in their gas tank is already 10% ethanol. So we already have that. So it wouldn't be inconsistent with what's already happening. Thank you.
A point of clarification, was the question not, would you pick one over another one?
No, it's a percentage.
5%?
Yeah.
Let the best come to the top.
Would you be in favor of mandating a percentage of energy to be produced by alternative sources?
Okay, now I think I understand the question differently. Sometimes you don't necessarily see the question the same way the first time. Going back to that, obviously what I want to see is encouraging. We don't know in the next 50 years, from one of the prior questions, what the new technologies are going to be. You want to encourage diversity in the energy field out there. You don't want to, we talked about not picking a winner. My answer is, I don't know what percentage I would apply to it, but you need to make sure that everything has a fair chance to rise to the top. Because technologies change, you've got to create incentives to go out there and develop things. And so you can't lock yourself in. You can't lock yourself into, obviously, coal power, electricity. You can't lock yourself into, let's not lock ourselves into Gulf oil drilled energy sources. And the same thing with nuclear. So my answer is yes, I want to make sure we constantly have an ongoing research and development of alternative energy sources. All of them.
Mandate a percentage is very vague. It doesn't say anything specific, whatever. Ed, who is Ed, by the way? Thank you. Your point is, I believe, that you want to see alternative energies brought into the picture. So how much of that, who's to say? What I go back to what I said before is that I'm very much in favor of opening the doors to any other sources and seeing what the overall cost would be, a fairness, as it was expressed earlier, for everybody across the board. Is it something that people can afford, truly afford, from the poorest to the well-heeled? And also, how safe is it in the long run? Is it something that is quite safe, has proven all that can happen is that, say, if it's a battery, the battery runs out, as an example. So I don't mean to be vague, but in stating a mandate of a percentage, that in itself is difficult to say. To bring in alternative sources, absolutely. But beyond that, to be able to get any more specific, I can't answer that at this time.
I'm generally opposed, Ed, to the idea of a mandate as a way to bring those elements in. I don't think it's the way we do things here so much in the United States. I think the proper way to do it is to look at what is truly us. Monopolies, which are here in the form of Florida Power and Light, are not really us. Here's a mandate. Let's have at least 5% of our power coming from another power company here in Miami-Dade County. And let's eventually open it up to complete competition. Let's go ahead and let power companies come in here and start to treat the energy grid like we treat the internet. You know, the power of the internet is that anyone can go and put a server up there and offer an application and be in a marketplace where they can reach a lot of people. That's really the way the power lines that run behind our house or under the ground, that's the way they work. They're the same kind of topology. Why not open them up in the same way? Right now, one of our biggest mandates, which is kind of hidden in a way, is our mandate to build around the automobile. While many of our plans, much of whom are sitting on shelves getting dusty at the county, talk about being walkable, what we truly have is a mandate that you build your house around cars, that you have a street running in front of your house. God knows, John is smiling, my daughter. We have the first house in the county which is built facing a bike path. There's no road in front of it. Let's go ahead and let these things happen and let people figure out the better way to do things.
Just a quick, if anyone could, everyone just double check your cell phones just to be sure that they're on quiet or
Can we
off.
still submit questions?
Yes,
Yes.
How do we do that? Just
you
bring
can
it.
just bring it up to me.
I read one on each side.
Sure. Or Caitlin will come get it.
When I was, a couple of years ago, before covering County Hall, I was covering real estate. And I remember that during the housing boom, developers, a whole slew of developers were seeking to move the urban development boundary. And at the time, the argument, one of the arguments made was that needed to do so to find affordable housing because it had gotten too expensive. For that reason, needed to move the line. It's one of many arguments I've heard for moving the development boundary. Thinking ahead, can you envision, sure, thinking ahead, can you envision, say in the next 10 years, any possible argument that would compel you, if you were to be, oh, excuse me. Can you hear me a little bit better?
Yes.
Thank you. Thinking ahead over the next 10 years, if any of you were to sit on the commission, couldn't you think of any possible scenario where you would vote yes to move the urban development boundary, say, over the next 10 years, next 8 years, over 2 terms?
No. Go ahead, is it okay?
That's good?
Okay, the answer to the question is no.